So let's get started with the Q&A session. If we can put Slido on the screens. Thank you. Questions for Leonardo. How many GBAS GST-C procedures are really developed for helicopter up to now? And how many operators have really selected this?
So for sure, there is not a broad diffusion of that. In Europe, we saw that LPV probably took the, not probably for sure, took the advantage to develop additional procedure. In our experience, we had the contract with customer in Russia that, of course, is not able to use LPV. So Russia was an area very interesting for develop that. And also within the Alps in Switzerland area, there is a strong interest to work with GBAS because also we flew at Zurich Airport. Zurich is already working with that. And the area surrounding Zurich is interesting for developing procedures. Today, currently, there is just the procedure for the fixed wing. So we think that having a cheap solution to modify the helicopter, we would see a possible development of additional procedure with probably not a big effort. We saw that also working for PBN. Initially, the onboard system was able to do the performance, the certification arrived, and then also the infrastructure designer procedure started to grow. So we are in this phase. We expect that a similar phase could occur also for GBAS.
To Bell, so quite impressive performance on the windscreen. Did you do any testing with drone to prove protection against drone strikes?
No, we didn't look at that. We've talked about it a little bit, but we have not looked at it yet. Although it would be very interesting to see how a hard plastic device hits the windscreen as opposed to the gelatinous cube that simulates the bird, right? So.
Question for Lionel. VTOL flight crew certification, what is the EASA approach on this? Will it be required a different flight crew license and endorsements?
So the flight crew licensing is being developed, I was mentioning, under a dedicated rulemaking task. I can just say at a very high level, we are foreseeing both to be able to transition commercial pilots, rotorcraft or airplane to those new type of vehicles, as well as having an initial license really tailored to this type of aircraft.
And just to add also, tailored to the maturity of the automation system. So depending on your level of automation, you will have different licenses probably.
So we can take directly the next one on VTOL. So to EASA, will you consider to develop a special condition for unmanned drone delivery aircraft operating in a certified category?
So the answer is yes. To be blunt, and it is being the next step of the UAS drone. And by the way, we are also probably going to revise the CS landscape associated to that, meaning that we may have a drone part that may be mixed like we do with CSAO today, but CS UAS plus CS 27, 29, 23 or 25, and a specific CS UAS for small drones.
Next one is for, I guess it's Leonardo. On the cost for GBAS ground station and the rest of the required infrastructure.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm not dealing with the ground infrastructure, so I honestly don't know very well which is the order of magnitude. Our concept was to start using initially what's already there, that is already set up for the fixed wing. Then our concept was more focused on the onboard solution. The onboard solution is really cheap because the modified GPS, modified GNSS is I would say, the same price of the standard GPS, then or slightly above, depends on the specific supplier, of course, but technically there is one board for getting VHF signal, so nothing more, and an additional VHF antenna that is a standard VOR antenna, so nothing more on the aircraft. And then the FMS integration, of course, depending on the specific architecture, specific solution. But in terms of cost for the onboard is really negligible, I would say. The infrastructure is a different story, for sure. And I connect also the next question that I think is about kind of portable station for the offshore and the heliports. We are developing with our GNSS supplier this kind of station. We had some initial evaluation, and this is something that could be, of course, much less than GBAS infrastructure in the airport. That, of course, is really complicated because it has a station and measurement and processor and transmitter. So, but the portable station, I would say, is really portable, that could technically work with this kind of system.
I'm wondering if we have questions in the room, because we are taking Slido questions, but maybe some people don't use it. I don't see any hand raised. Okay, but don't hesitate to raise your hand if you want to ask a question. So we take the next one, which is, as a non-EU design organizations, can we apply to new type certifications through this VTOL special condition? Lionel or David?
Yes, I can answer this one. So basically, the answer is no. As long as we need to go through your national authorities, but or a working arrangement with OTC, but it's very complicated. What we have a look, we have a lot of companies willing to apply the special condition VTOL and applying directly to EASA, even if a non-EU. But for a type certificate, we are coordinating with our DOA people. It's very difficult right now. So the two standard solutions that we foresee is first, you apply to us via your national authorities using a concurrent, what we call concurrent validation process. And then we would apply the special condition VTOLs our certification basis as a validating authority. The second is to set up a company in Europe with a full DOA and not an empty shell company, obviously. That's the two clear paths. Third path is probably more complicated. That's what we are today. But we are coordinating with our DOA people. Still, it's an interesting question.
Next one, still on VTOL. On auto-rotation, question from Captain Q. Auto-rotation, will VTOL be required to be able to auto-rotate?
So we are not requesting it through the special condition. It would be really hard for fixed pitch small propellers to achieve auto-rotation. However, we have those performance objectives of the control emergency landing for the basic category and of continued safe flight and landing for the enhanced category. The control emergency landing, we foresee it needs to provide the same level of safety as an auto-rotation or a power-off glide for an airplane. So it will be equivalent, but we do not request an auto-rotation in that special condition.
So Lionel, you may wish to take the next one. It's about the weight limit that was selected by EASA for the special condition VTOL.
So the industry is familiar with this limit, especially the rotorcraft industry. From looking at projects and what is coming, we think that above these 3-ton limits there will really be a change in technology to be able to lift more than those 3 tons. We are speaking of higher voltages, for example. We'll have a number of issues on which that are rather uncertain today. So we want to gain some experience. All the projects that are in the short pipeline anyhow are below these 3 tons. we want to gain experience on those projects, and then we will see if we can extend the weight or if we need to take additional considerations before going to a higher weight.
Yes, but should you come tomorrow with a project with higher weight, obviously we will amend the special condition, probably not as it is today, but blending some other requirements from CS29 typically or CS25 if it's deemed necessary. So it's something we are going step by step.
Next one for Bell. Regarding hubs, operators of Bell 206 have reported great difficulties to get safety performance data from Bell. Are you currently supplying such data?
Yeah, no, I'm not supplying such data because we don't have a HUMS that's Bell provided, so wherever they got their HUMS was a STC kit. However, if they're trying to get data from us or we have something that we agreed to work with an STC provider, I don't know about it, but it could be that they do. I'm more than happy to dig in. They might have just, whatever data they're looking for, they might not have asked the right person. So, Carl, if you want to see me at the break, I will be more than happy to provide my info and be the conduit for that. Thanks.
Next question on VTOL. When does EASA expect availability of the first type certificate for VTOL?
So to be fully honest with you, we don't have a crystal ball. What we can say is that yesterday we handed over the first DOA approval for an eVTOL organization. That was in the news if you've followed that. Now a TC, I would say with a real guess between 3 to 5 years would be something reasonable. More, I guess, the industry would fail. So I really encourage it, but that's pretty much the point we are in. I could take also the next questions on cyber security. And actually, we are just updating all the CS right now to address cyber security. It's a NPA that is out. And obviously, it will be completely transposed to the special condition VTOL, even though we have some requirements that are addressing it indirectly, but in the IMC, it will be there, definitely. So that's fully on board and addressed.
Question for Leonardo. Is there any regulation that forces Leonardo to develop GBAS in CS29? In addition, how much weight is being put on the existing system with this integration?
Okay, so yes, 189, that is the helicopter that certified that the GBAS function is a CS29 aircraft. So we took CS29 as reference, and we had with EASA EASA CRI to address the specific aspect that EASA wanted to see through. So nothing special, but we had, of course, to put together something that was not standard for helicopter operation. About the weight is really not much. Consider that the GPS receiver has to add the VHF receiver internally, so it gains something like half a kilogram, slightly less. We have 2 GPS on board, so 1 kilogram for the receiver, so no additional standalone receiver. And then 1 VHF antenna that is in the order, I don't remember well, but about 1 to 2 kilograms. So this is the hardware that has to be added, and then unfortunately the software is very light, so nothing at all.
Thank you. I'm just checking if there are any questions in the room. No, then we continue with Slido for VTOL. On initial safety levels, the initial safety levels can be compromised in operation by modification and neglect. Will there be a TÜV or MOT like for cars?
To be honest, there will be fully under EASA scope, so modification will have to go through modification processes that are standard today, like a helicopter. So I would guess EASA would be the TÜV equivalent for sure. So I guess it's even more than car, if I may say, and that's really how it is handled today. Next questions. Many VTOL will have tilting wings or tilting rotors.
So we strived in the special condition to set the objectives so that they are agnostic with respect to the type of architecture. So it should be compatible with tilt wings, tilting rotors. We are developing, as mentioned before, the related AMC, and there it could be that for certain aspects we need to distinguish in the AMC between different type of architectures. The idea was really to keep a level playing field, and the objectives are applied regardless of your type of architecture.
I think the next question was already addressed before on the burst strike. We can take the next one. Does EASA reflect about increasing the max takeoff weight of the CS-27? No, what we are thinking about is creating subcategories. Typically, for between piston engine up to turbine, there is a wide scope. Between Cat A CS-27 to traditional one, single engine. So that they are probably, and it's in the frame of the safety continuum amending 1309, that we are looking at that a bit more closely.
Yeah, so we have slowly to come to a close. I propose we take the next two questions and we break for lunch. So to Tony Randall, reasons for same fatalities with less accident over the years, more flight hours, increased high-risk operations, more operators, poor reporting.
So that's kind of, it's a, that's the head scratcher, yeah? So for those of you who have been around for a while and are knowledgeable of the International Helicopter Safety Team effort, now IHSF, that whole thing started, the original concept was to go after accidents. And the prevailing thought was we decrease accidents, we'll also decrease the number of fatalities. Well, accidents are decreasing as shown by those two charts from both the EASA and the US. Fatalities are not coming down commensurate with the number of total accidents coming down. So it's been kind of interesting. So what the US team did over the last 3 years was do another deep dive into the data and identify the accidents that were killing people, not just accidents. They went after the fatal accidents. And so the helicopter safety enhancements that are out there right now for the USHST, and you can find them on the IHSF website, they are directly related to that set of data which was causing fatalities. But at the end of the day, I can't hang it on any of those because like that list I showed with the on my brief where you had a list of 4 or 5 things on there which were the highest cause factors, whether it was CFIT, double IMC, those kind of things. They're prevalent in all of them, but we broke down what we thought were the problem statements and then came up with corrective actions for each of them, and those are in the HSEs. But it's peanut butter spread still across that whole gamut of why we crash in the first place. So you can't reach out and put your finger on one thing. All you can do is try and put corrective actions against each of them. So, and that's kind of what we did. It's a long answer, but it's not a direct answer, sorry.
Thank you, and thank you all for the lots of questions for this session and the 4 presenters. Thank you also to the presenters of this morning. Just before you break for lunch, David Solar wants to say a few words.
So first, put it one. Ah, yes. I would like to thank you for attending. Nobody left the room. It's a good, it's a good sign already, even though it's already 1 p.m. So thank you for that. I would like to mention 2 other things because we've talked about rotorcraft and VTOL, but we are working also on tilt wings. We have the 609, and we are building up the entire certification basis also together with the FAA. It's a validation on our side, but a large activities on that. And we are also building up the certification basis of gyrocopters, and we have PALV, I think they're here in the room. So it will be also published early next year, I guess, for comment. And here also it's a huge work from the teams on a kind of unusual kind of products. And it's also driving a lot of interesting aspects. So keep posted on our website. You will have a lot on the plate in 2020. And now I wish you a good lunch and see you soon in the afternoon. It's on the two sides, VTOL on one side, traditional rotorcraft here. And please register on the EHA booth also, it's very important for next year. Thank you.